Yo, the name is Alpern, and today we're checking out some of the maps from the Greyshots 4v4 map contest. I've selected a few favorites of mine. I am one of the judges judging these maps to find a winner. But apart from that, you can also yourself join in the vote, which I think goes live sometime next week. I'll post a few links down in the description if you want to check the maps out yourself. But yeah, let's jump into the very first map. And here we are on the very first map called Traverse, and it's definitely one of the more pleasing maps to look at currently in the contest. It's a very nice looking map with some very nice atmospheric settings, which you'll see with like the street lights, etc. And it just looks very nice. Like, look at this little area here with these lights. It is a bridge map, which I think we can all agree aren't like the most best maps when it comes to gameplay in Company of Heroes, but I think this one kind of gets a pass because there's a lot of crossings on this map. And I don't know, I've played a few games and I don't think the bridges are really the worst parts. I actually think the entire center segment throughout the map actually plays quite nicely. I do have some issues with like how chaotic it sort of is. It can be a bit hard to track of where you are in these small little streets here because there's so much detail everywhere, which you can just really get lost in. But yeah, very nice visually. But yeah, I think some of these areas, I don't know, they look so nice, you know, but they can be a bit troublesome to play. Of course, this is just outside the base, so you're not going to be fighting too much here. But still, with pathfinding, etc., I think there's probably a bit of room for improvement here. We just have to playtest this quite a bit, I think. But in general, just completely gorgeous, and there's so many cool details. Like, look at this windmill here. You might think this is like an asset in the game. This is not an asset in the game. He's actually made this windmill out of planks and fences and stone walls, and it's just so well done that it just, you know, it just blends in so nicely with the map. And he's done this all over the place. There is so much detail on this map. You can just be staring at this map for hours and finding new stuff. Like, look at this water wheel, for instance. That's not an asset either. He's just put together a bunch of fences and it looks so nice. Like, really, the amount of detail is put into this map. I just had to showcase it because there is just an abundance of it, and it's, I don't know, it's very well done, and that's all I can really say. If there was anything like specifically, I can just, from my few games I've had on this map, I think these garrisons around the center VP, you could really just remove these and you would have this like open center. I think that makes a lot more sense for this map personally, and it would just, you know, clear up the pathfinding a bit and make it a bit more clear to the players. This is something I'm going to be basically saying throughout all of these maps that I'm going to be showcasing here. Simplicity, I think, is extremely important, and one or some of the best maps from CoH3, for instance, were just extremely simple. They didn't overdo anything, and I think that just really makes the game play a lot better because the game is already very complicated. Like, the map doesn't really have to be very complicated, right? And I think that's a very good philosophy for a map. But even though I said that, I still think this is one of the better maps, and Jesus Christ, it looks very lovely. But yeah, it's actually not the best looking map in this little contest here, but we'll get to that later. Next up, we have Steps, which if you've played CoH3, you might recognize. This is basically a port from the CoH2 Steps version, but remade from scratch in Company of Heroes 3. Now, I was never really a fan of Steps back in CoH2. I think it wasn't one of the better 4v4 maps, but I can admit that the amount of work is put into this one is just very nice. You got this very iconic center here, you know, with the two paths going into the center with the hills. And yeah, I mean, this is a desert map, but there's still some variance here. If you recall, this map actually had a island at the bottom, which is completely removed, and instead there's some ruins here. And yeah, I do like that. I actually think it's made some very nice changes here. This is probably the most interesting part of the map. These ruins are actually vision blockers, so you can like have a squad here or a squad here and, you know, flank around, kind of like you could in CoH3 Eindhoven. And there's a lot about that with these ruins, like this like vision blocker here, for instance. You know, you've got flanking paths going around, and I do like this little addition here he has done to the south. I think this is very interesting. Meanwhile, in the north, we have these big, large, rocky hills, you know, and a bit more red-orangey. And I did realize that this map kind of has a color gradient going from it, because in the north you get these very red, rocky, you know, sand dunes, etc. Meanwhile, in the south, it's way more yellowish with ruins, which I think is a pretty cool biome change. You also got, of course, this little town here. If you recall, the CoH2 version had a couple of houses. There's a lot more garrisons on this segment here, and it basically goes like a line throughout the map, which I think is kind of cool. Definitely, you know, he's definitely expanded a bit in the concept here that was in CoH2 with the wood Russian houses, right? Russian countryside. So yeah, I think this is definitely one of the better ones, and I definitely think this map is already ready for auto match, because it's basically CoH2 steps, which has been an auto match for I don't know how many years. But yeah, cool map and very, very well ported, I think. And next up we have Oasis Depot, and this is, in my opinion, the best looking map in the game right now. The way he sort of blended the biomes and blended the colors here, I think is just very nicely done. You have this island in the middle, which you can get onto in 4 different ways, either through one of the bridges, or you can climb the infantry only like pathways here up this hill. And I think, you know, just in general, very experimental concept. Which I think needs to do a lot of playtesting here to make sure that this actually works gameplay wise. But man, if this game or map isn't bloody beautiful. You got these like Oasis, you know, the map's called Oasis Depot. So you got the Oasis part here, and look this, he has like put trees in the river, which, you know, shouldn't work, but it looks bloody gorgeous because it kind of looks like seaweeds or I don't know, coral reefs or something, and it looks so nicely here. And yeah, I am really liking this map. I played a bit on it, and I think there are some issues, but man, if we're gonna get those over with by playing the map, right, doing playtesting. But yeah, in general, just love this map. I think it has some very like clear areas because you have these like different biomes. If we look at the map here, you basically have the Oasis part of the map here. Then you have the depot down here, which is like an oil pump area. And then you got the city for the cutoffs, and you got some ruins up here. Just very, very nice concept, though it is extremely experimental, of course. I think one of the major issues I have with this map is the spread out points on the sides. I think the distances between them are a bit too far, especially the victory points. It can be really hard to contest these victory points because they are so far away from anything, right? So I would like just to see all of these points kind of mushed together a bit more, where, you know, the distances are a bit closer. Currently they have like uniform basically distances between them, which I think breaks the pacing quite a bit. If you look at some of the better maps we have right now, like Road to Tunis, you have areas where there's 4 points fitting inside of the screen in a single screen without like rotating or anything, and that's never happening here. At most there's like 1 point on the screen, and then there's 1 point on the screen, and then there's 1 point on the screen. I guess you have the VP up here as well, but I think you get the drift, right? The spacing on the points kind of breaks up the spacing quite a bit, or the pacing rather, for the gameplay, and this is definitely something he can improve. But man, I really do like this map, and yeah, I think visually it's one of the better looking maps, simply because of these river areas, which I don't really think we've seen in any other map. And man, it looks so lovely. And now we are on Inferno, which is honestly currently my favorite map out of the bunch. I think this just kind of proves what I was talking about earlier about simplicity. This is an extremely simple map, and there isn't a lot going on in it compared to some of the other ones. Like visually it looks fine, but there's nothing like breathtaking like the other maps. You got some very nice sand dunes, and that's pretty much about it. But the simplicity of the layout and some cool concept with the territory, you know, it's just, if this map was in CoH3, this map would see tournament play, for team games that is, and man, it just sort of works. You have these very like large dividers throughout the map. Interestingly, they also divide the territories. They're actually neutral territory, which kind of emphasizes the cutoffs very clearly. You got 3 cutoffs for either side, and you know, it just cuts up the map very neatly, I think, in a very natural sense. Other things going on the map, you have this house, this one garrison on the map in the middle, and you know, it's nothing like flashy, but man, it just works. Like, this is a good garrison like in terms of gameplay, because it's just there, it's very clear there's a stronghold here, right? And yeah, I think you can neatly play around this. You also got this little British hill going on over here, which I think is just really neat. You can't currently get on top of this. I think it would be really cool if you could, though. You could probably like do a small little path here, maybe move the ladder on top of that path, and you know, just get some infantry up there to flank the fuel point or something. You know, it doesn't really reach anything else, so why not, right? It's just a bit cool, a cool little bit of flavor right here, which I think is very nice. But yeah, like I said, there's not a lot going on in this map, but I think if you threw this into the map pool tomorrow, it would just be one of the more appreciated maps because of how simple it is, and the game just kind of shines when the map is simple. And yeah, really much liking this one. And the final map I'm going to be showing you is Tobruk. Now, Tobruk is a coastline map. You got this huge beach on the far right or far eastern corner, or actually northern corner. I just spotted the north sign is to the right. But you got this huge beach basically. Meanwhile, in the center you got some buildings, which is, I guess, Tobruk, and up far up on the left you have this airfield. So yeah, it's a very elevated map. I think this closest like reminiscent map to this has to be something like, you know, Red Ball Express or something along those lines, because it is very laney. You basically have these 4 lanes, which, you know, I think it's fine to have 1 or 2 laney maps in the map pool, and I think this is one of the better ones from what I've seen. You have these very huge hills though, which I'm not entirely convinced about, because being up here, you know, you can kind of flank. I guess it is sort of cool because that way you can also have some team play going around. But yeah, really interesting map for sure, and this is definitely one of the favorites of mine from the map contest. But yeah, this is also going to be the final one, but I do recommend you to check out some of the other maps if you'd like to. Like I mentioned earlier, they will be linked in the description. You can playtest them, and there is a vote going to be happening within the community where you can vote on whatever map you think should win the Grey Shot competition. But yeah, really cool to have some maps. I do wish Relic was a bit faster incorporating these honestly great maps. Like, a lot of them are just rivaling or even, you know, just straight up better than the current automatch version, so I think that would bring some very nice variety to the game. But yeah, thank you for watching.